Edward Bennett was more than just a successful man. He was a legend in the world of business. His empire, sprawling across multiple industries, was a testament to his relentless drive and sharp intellect. From the glistening skyscrapers that bore his company's logo to the international partnerships that solidified his influence, Edward's accomplishments were unparalleled. His name commanded respect and admiration, whispered with awe by both rising entrepreneurs and seasoned moguls. To the outside world, his life appeared as flawless as a diamond. Immense wealth, a thriving company, and doors that opened effortlessly with his reputation. Edward himself was deeply convinced that success was the ultimate measure of a person's worth, the pinnacle that overshadowed all other aspects of life. Yet beneath this polished exterior lay a life riddled with voids, cracks that no amount of wealth or influence could fill. Edward's carefully constructed world began to shift the day his son, James, was born. What should have been a moment of unbridled joy and pride turned into a storm of confusion and denial. James was not like other children. He was born both deaf and mute. For Edward, this unexpected reality felt like a blow to his meticulously crafted plans. Doctors offered no definitive answers, leaving Edward to wrestle with emotions he could neither understand nor accept. Instead of seeing James as a child to nurture and cherish, Edward viewed him as an anomaly, a deviation that disrupted the narrative of his life. In Edward's eyes, James represented weakness, a perceived flaw that might tarnish the immaculate legacy he had envisioned. The thought of having a son who might not fit into his world of ambition and power was unbearable for Edward. Rather than confronting his fears and doubts, he chose the path of avoidance, a decision that would haunt both father and son for years to come. Unable to reconcile his feelings, Edward made a decision that would cast a long shadow over their lives. He sent James away to a boarding school for special children, a place far removed from the world Edward inhabited. For James, this was more than just a change of scenery. It was a profound rejection from the one person whose acceptance he craved most. As a child, James struggled to understand why his father had turned away from him, but over time, he came to accept that he was on his own. The sense of abandonment shaped him, teaching him early on that self-reliance was his only option. Meanwhile, Edward buried himself even deeper in his work, expanding his empire and convincing himself that his success justified every decision he made. In his pursuit of wealth and power, Edward failed to see the emotional cost of his choices, a cost that would come due in ways he could never have anticipated. Years passed, turning into decades, and James grew into a man far stronger than anyone had expected. The challenges of his upbringing, combined with his disability, could have broken him, but James refused to let them define his future. Through sheer determination, he learned to navigate the world on his own terms. He mastered lip reading, honed his communication skills, and developed a quiet yet commanding presence that made people take notice. James channeled the pain of his past into a drive for success, proving to himself and the world that he was capable of greatness. Far from being a weak link, James became a force to be reckoned with, a man who refused to be overshadowed by his father's legacy or his rejection. Quietly and without fanfare, James entered the business world, stepping into the very arena where his father had once dominated. Unlike Edward, who had inherited opportunities and built upon them, James started from scratch. He observed the industry, learned its intricacies, and worked tirelessly to build his own company. With each success, he gained confidence, carving out a name for himself that was entirely his own. Over time, his business not only thrived, but grew to rival his father's empire. Then came the day when James accomplished what no one, not even Edward, could have foreseen. He acquired his father's company. The empire that Edward had spent a lifetime building now belonged to the son he had once dismissed. When Edward learned of the acquisition, he was utterly shocked. The news struck him like a bolt of lightning, shattering the illusion of control he had always clung to. Edward had never imagined that James, the boy he had considered a liability, would rise to such heights. The realization was humbling and painful, forcing Edward to confront the enormity of his mistake. His carefully constructed world began to crumble as he came to terms with the fact that James had not only succeeded without him, but had surpassed him in ways he could never have anticipated. Determined to make amends, Edward decided to reach out to his son. He arrived at James's office one day, carrying with him a mixture of hope and regret. Edward offered his resources, his connections, and his experience, believing that these gestures could bridge the chasm between them. In his heart, he hoped it wasn't too late to rebuild their fractured relationship. Edward spoke of second chances, of his desire to finally be the father James deserved. But the look in James's eyes told him that reconciliation would not come easily. James listened in silence, his demeanor calm yet unyielding. His years of pain and abandonment had forged a resolve that Edward could not break with mere words. "You can't buy my respect or my forgiveness," James said, his voice steady despite the unique way he communicated. "I built my life, my company, and my success without you. I don't need your pity, your resources, or your help. This is my journey, and I'm proud of it." His words were like a mirror, reflecting the harsh truths Edward had spent a lifetime avoiding. Edward tried to explain, his voice trembling as he spoke of his regrets. He admitted to his failures, his blindness, and his inability to be the father James needed. But his words, no matter how heartfelt, could not erase the years of hurt and loss. James remained unmoved, his silence speaking volumes. To him, actions had always mattered more than words, and Edward's actions had long ago told the story of where his priorities lay. Defeated, Edward left James's office, his shoulders heavy with the weight of his choices. For the second time in his life, he realized he had lost his son. Only this time, he knew there was no going back. Edward had learned a hard truth. Relationships cannot be bought, and true respect and love cannot be earned through wealth or power. James, for his part, had carved his own path, proving to the world and to himself that he was more than his father's son. His journey was one of resilience, determination, and self-worth, a journey that Edward could only watch from afar. Edward's story serves as a poignant reminder that success in life is not measured by wealth or achievements, but by the relationships we nurture and the love we share. When we lose sight of that, the price we pay is one that no amount of money can redeem.